I'm coming clean in this video. One of the forecasts I made 20 years ago in my book, The New Barbarian Manifesto, was way off the mark. Yes, I was correct in observing for 50 years degenerate liberal intellectuals have been denigrating the American dream. But then, sadly, I went wrong. I said, thankfully, American society is totally free of the most insidious virus, the corrosive sentimental socialism that has terminally corrupted Europe. The reality is that today we see American colleges, particularly of the liberal arts, becoming fatally contaminated with smug social justice warriors. These entitled snowflake graduates and undergraduates are now a liability to business, threatening the whole economic well-being of the West. It's easy to see why competitors in China, India, and elsewhere in the world are looking at this self-immolation in total disbelief. The poisonous message of woke socialism is being actively spread across the campuses of America's universities by radical, self-righteous academics, targeting their naive and gullible and guilt-ridden, virtue-signaling, mostly middle-class students who, with no experience of this uncaring world and who have never paid taxes or had any responsibility, fall for this twaddle, hook, line and sinker. So, what exactly is socialism? Well, it's easier to say what it's not. You can forget all the propaganda about fairness and equality and empathy and protecting the poor. That's just spin, window dressing. It's all lies, big lies. Socialism wants to cancel anyone who thinks differently. So much for empathy. And as for fairness, it does make everybody equally poor, apart that is from the political elite. Now, socialism is a product of the now defunct industrial age. It has no place in the information age where labour no longer creates wealth. Not that it ever did. Labour has always been a commodity, which must compete on price. In today's world, with over 1 billion sub-employed workers and all easily and cheaply accessible as international transport makes transaction costs tumble, threats by organised trade unions to withdraw their labour from production is completely futile. Socialism's failing mode of operation is violence against the means of production, with the claimed intention of redistributing wealth. It's all Mac the knife. It's badly disguised theft and gangsterism. That is until these left-leaning politicians take over and then no one except the leadership has any rights. The law is not for party members. Socialism has brought the world nothing but grief. From Hitler, because we tend to forget that Hitler was a socialist, Stalin, Chairman Mao, Pol Pot, Kim Il-sung, Hugo Chavez, Robert Mugabe, right down to the little Hitlers from the Labour Party, the self-important non-entities who strutted around the Welsh valleys of my childhood. With no economic justification, socialism has degenerated into sentimentality. Yes, degenerated, that's the right word. Degenerated into a delusion of virtue signalling, into wokeness, and in order to brainwash the gullible in society, socialist propagandists, fascist by any other name, follow Joseph Goebbels' advice to the letter. If you tell a lie big enough and keep repeating it, people will eventually come to believe it. Socialism is not benign. It is a philosophy of power. It demands that organised labour takes over and turns society into a well-oiled machine, or to use another metaphor, into an anthill, all supposedly for the benefit of all. It's unadulterated social engineering, the factory metaphor imposed on society. Socialists, these pious commentators, having lost the economic argument, become virtuous from indignation. Certain in their rightness, or rather their self-righteousness, they launch intimidation and glorification on society, cancelling all opposition. Domination is transfigured into administration. Nietzsche was right. The victory of the moral ideal. Socialism is a moral ideal. The victory of the moral ideal is achieved by the same immoral means as every other victory: force, lies, slander, injustice. These words are never more evident than in the woke madness gripping much of today's Western media and Western universities. What socialism is a rabid form of collectivism in which the good of the collective transcends and can stamp on, indeed it's obliged to stamp on, all individual rights. It insists that the individual is the slave of the collective, to which end any and all aggressive means are justified. Socialists fail to understand that it is individual talent and not the perspiration of the mob that generates wealth. If in power, socialist mediocrities will ultimately kill off all the potential for wealth creation within their society. Because it's individual talent and the great divider of humanity that is the diviner of economic success. Hence, mere labour must not be treated equally to talent. No country can succeed without a motivated workforce of talented individuals. Mere physical labour is not enough. Continuous innovation by talent workers is the key to economic success. To survive, society needs these people to produce wealth. But there are clever people everywhere, so why is prosperity so unevenly distributed among nations? Performance depends on a balance between social capital and individual intellectual capital. Socialism has that balance completely wrong. In the anthill of socialism, no individual thought is allowed. But what happens when the talented human ant discovers that he's an ant? All liberation depends on the consciousness of servitude. The morality of socialism is servitude to the mob, or in reality, to its jumped up leadership. Unfortunately for society, who are trumpeting their own perceived virtuous morality, this does not placate natural forces, in particular economic forces. Such forces have no conscience. There are no moral phenomena, only a moral interpretation of phenomena. Baudelaire was right when he observed, "One is punished for being weak, not for being cruel." Socialist moralizers can bleat all they like that this is unfair. Nature is not immoral when it has no pity for the degenerate. And socialism is degenerate and degenerative. Socialists believe in an absolute morality, their own codified prejudice, mere bigoted ideology. And there is no point in arguing about the most appropriate prejudice. That's best left to natural selection, because it's natural selection, not the supposed virtue in an ideology, that ultimately arbitrates between winners and losers. Because whether you like it or not, economic success is beyond good and evil. There is no true and false in ideologies, no good and evil, no morality. It's just delusion. Everything is power, and the will to power. Everything else is sheer sentimentality. And as for the future, unless a country dumps socialism in the garbage bin of history, it has no future, and as von Hayek predicted, the road to serfdom